Welcome to Wagons of Steel. It's a party and everyone's invited. Today I'm going to talk about why my car is the coolest car on the planet. To me anyways. Your car may be the coolest car on the planet to you. But this car prevents me from finishing my GTX project or buying other cars because I just got to remind myself, I already have the coolest car. This is, if I were to just pick a car that I wanted, it would probably be this one. And a lot of it is because it's a station wagon, of course, because I am the station wagon king. And a lot of it's because it's a race car. I love race cars. And it's a stock Eliminator car, which is, of course, the car show that races. And I just thought I'd go over it today, talk a little bit more about stock Eliminator, because people seem to like that, and try and relate it to people who race in regular bracket racing. Because there's a lot of carryovers, and in fact, even though stock Eliminator is one of the most crazy, expensive, and complicated classes in drag racing, a lot of the tricks that we use for this class are actually a way of saving money and getting stuff done in bracket racing. And I thought I'd pass some of that along to you. One of the things you got to know about stock Eliminator racing is that there are a lot of rules. And it's called stock for a reason. They're not really stock, but a lot of what's going on in these cars is based on stock stuff. Like, this engine may seem pretty extreme, but it's actually was available in this car in 1964, which is another reason why I would pick this 1964 Plymouth. You get this Max Wedge, which is a beautiful piece built by world famous Steve Wan. It's probably the best engine we've ever had in this car. We're still working on it. We've only been out to the track with it once, and we went 1086 at 125 miles an hour. It was 4,000 feet above sea level, and it was 104 degrees, so that was flying pretty hard. There's a lot more left, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it for years to come, so Steve tells us. So what have we got going here? This car is, it has to weigh what it weighed from the factory, which is basically 4,000 pounds with me in it. It has to run the original proprietary transmission, 727 torque flight. Although a lot of guys in stock Eliminator race ProTrans, which is a company that invented the art of putting 904 guts into a 727 case. And I'm not sure if that was to fool anybody into thinking it was a 727 when really it was a 904. I know the end result is the transmission weighs 100 pounds less than a 727. And any spinning weight that you can lighten up, that is something you want to do in any class of racing. Rotating, reciprocating weight, the lighter you can make it legally, the better off you are. It'll make the car accelerate faster and get better quarter mile times. Let's see. Get around the lift here. Here's the interior of the car. You're required to have the original dashboard, but you're not required to have anything in it. So behind that dashboard there's nothing, which is another part of the whole saving weight thing. That's definitely something you can take away from stock Eliminator, is take all the weight out you possibly can. And in stock Eliminator, since it has to weigh, you know, what it weighed originally, then that weight goes back into the car in a place where you want it. So the weight that I took out of the dashboard, I put into back here. Oh, it's not open now, so I'm not gonna open it, but underneath this radiator here, there's a ballast box. So it's in the back right hand of the car, which kind of balances out, you know, my heavy ass sitting up in the driver's seat up there, having the weight in a box back here compensates for that. And I've seen cars, you know, you look at underneath a really, really badass, you know, car, like, you know, state-of-the-art, expensive car, you'll see little pieces of weight all over the place because they put the car on scales, put a scale on each of the 4 wheels, and they put weight underneath in different places to get the weight exactly like they like it. Now I'm just kind of crude about it. I figure I want the weight in the back behind the axle as far back as I can get it. That may or may not be wrong. I've heard some people say that you want it above the axle as high up as you can get it. So maybe something to do in the future to experiment would be to put the weight in a box up there, kind of where that gold box is. I'm over just a little bit right in the middle maybe. I've seen people put their batteries back there. In stock Eliminator, you're allowed to put a battery in the trunk if it came with it like that from the factory, like a lot of modern cars and some old race cars, or you can put a battery in the trunk and put one up front under the hood where it came. So you can have one back here, but if it didn't come with it here, you have to also put one back right up in the front where they came from the factory. You know, at stock Eliminator, you spend a lot of time thinking about stuff, and you know, I thought, well, if I did put a battery back here, I'd probably put it above the axle there, and of course you have to put a NHRA legal approved box around it, and then maybe I would use that battery to run the fuel pump, which is back here. Gotta see it up under there. The fuel pump is it's a real power sucker. And if your fuel pump goes bad, you are screwed. So, I don't know. I think I probably won't do anything with the battery stuff because it'll just make it more complicated than it needs to be. And complicated is not good, especially when it comes to wiring stuff. See, there's our alternator. We're no longer required to run a Mopar alternator, so we run a Chevy one-wire alternator, which is really simple. This, you know, the run red wire just goes. This goes directly to the battery. So when it's charging, that charges the battery from the alternator. All you GM guys know all about that. Mopar's got like this crazy wiring harness on the firewall that I'm a dipshit. I don't know. I don't understand how it works, but it adds layers of complexity to the charging system. Here are the headers that we have. You're not allowed to run this Panavac system here in stock Eliminator, but I have it on there for when I'm running something else. Sometimes I take my stocker and I put a different motor in it for bracket racing, in which case the Panavac is this system here. It creates suction in the engine, which increases ring seal, I guess is how it's supposed to work. It's I think it was invented for NASCAR. Lots of drag cars have it. These are the headers that come apart. So all those pieces, they all go up front. Well, when we got those years ago, when we first started racing this car, like 20 years ago, we were just dreading putting them in the car because like it looks so complex. But we soon discovered you could practically throw them into the car under the hood. The only part that's complex or pain in the ass is getting the collectors on. Sometimes we're getting better and better at it. What do we have here? C stock automatic. That's the class I run in with this car. There's you gotta have this sticker on. So like you see the rich guys that don't run any contingency decals, they've got to have this one. And I think you got to have this one too, the NHRA sticker. I have all these other stickers down here too. Because when you win or runner-up, these guys pay you. Some better than others, but whenever I've won a race, these guys all pay up, which is pretty nice. I mean, it really, $200, $300 a piece, it adds up pretty quick. And so this car was painted by my friend Paco Rollins, who is in North Carolina now. He's a super talented dude. I hope he's watching this. Hi, Paco. He hand painted all this. Gaffo Jones is my nickname. Dr. Big Block, he's my crew chief. Mike Breno, he puts all this stuff together. He's a badass. There's me, my name, Chris Barnes. There's my number. And then these are all the races I've been at with this car. These ones over here are, you get those when you're running in the division, so it's like says what divisions I've competed in. These ones are like, this one is Division 2, which is Florida, and this Division 7, which is Southwest, California, Nevada, Arizona. Then these ones are all the national events that I've participated in. I think it's 15 of them. When you look at it, it's hard not to think, geez Louise, that's expensive, because it is expensive. What else we got here? Bryant Performance. That's my friend Terry Mom. Hi, Terry. Trucktown Missile. Trucktown is my friend Dave Barcelone, who sold me my truck and my trailer. He's a good sponsor and a good friend. This is my friend Step, who died a few years ago. He used to detail our cars out at the track. Mark Lyle, he was the Division 6 head and Division Director. Jim Isherwood, another old friend. These are the tires you're required to run in the class. This is the biggest you can get. They're 9x30s. They look bigger than 9x30 because I run 10-inch wide wheels, which you're allowed to do, and that makes the tire bigger. It gives you a bigger contact patch. I run Goodyear tires. They seem to last longer, and they're good tires. I run them on the front and the back. See under here, I've got the axles out of my rear end right now. It's a Dana 60, built by Moser. Moser's an excellent company. They do all of our axles and rear end stuff. We're currently getting the axles. We're getting them drilled and tapped so that I can put bigger studs in them, because they came with 1/2 inch, and then we need to get 5/8. Because this car weighs so much and it leaves so hard. We're worried about breaking the studs off. So they're back at Moser getting refitted for the bigger studs, and we're having them gun drilled, which is, they drill a hole down the middle. It makes it like the barrel of a gun. It takes a whole lot of weight off of it. So that's one. And what else? We were running 4, 5, 6-to-1 gears back there. But then we decided we wanted to go with the 488s for our new super badass engine. The only other thing we're doing is we're going to put a low first gear set in the transmission, which means the first gear it spins up faster and it'll leave the line harder. Is the idea, because the faster you can get through that first 60 feet, the faster your quarter-mile time is going to be. So, waiting for that to arrive. We've got time. It's February. It's looking like our first race will probably be May, would be the divisional race at Boise, which we'll probably go to. We were thinking about going and racing in Phoenix later on in this month, but that didn't work out. It's going to be too expensive, and it's too long of a trip, and blah, blah, blah. Excuses. We've got the red headlights in the middle there. This car's all hand painted. It really looks like an old race car. I mean, I guess in a way it is. I mean, we started racing it in 2005, so it makes it 20 years old. I kind of painted it to look a little bit like the Ram Chargers cars, but of course they were all Dodges, and this is a Plymouth. Fastest it's ever gone is a 10.62. At 124 miles an hour. Actually, we just beat that. We went 125 when we were in Bakersfield. And the 1086, it had a pretty slow 60-footer, so maybe when we get the gears all settled out, we might go, faster, who knows. The air was so terrible there, too. We got disc brakes on the front. Back in the day, they would run drum brakes because they were lighter and they spin easier, but man, it's a once you pass the finish line, you got to pay attention to slowing down, even with disc brakes. And I can't even imagine what it would be like to have four-wheel drums. It's a set of double adjustable drag shocks in the front. Stevie gave us those when I was down there putting the engine in the car. We still haven't played with that much. And we got double adjustable shocks in the back too. All that stuff. This is more drag racing stuff. Everything is connected to it different pieces. Everything's connected. So if you mess with one piece of it, it's gonna affect everything else. You know, like my old engine builder, Dan Dvorak in Waldo, Florida, used to sing the head bones connected to the neck bone song. And what he was saying was, you know, anything you do, it's going to affect everything else. And so having the strong motor will probably affect how our suspension settings need to be set up. And so we got that to look forward to. See, I'll show you the wiring in here. You know, we've been doing all the wiring. We do everything in all our cars, and we've been doing our own wiring for years. And this car has been very funky in the past. I used to have all this stuff in the dashboard in the glove compartment, and it was a mess. And then, like, you know, like stuff would happen where, like, one time I was racing in Phoenix and I was in the 3rd round or the 4th round, something. I was going for it. I was a machine, and I didn't have one of these suckers, a relay. We didn't know about relays really then, and my fan burned up the switch, so the fan didn't work anymore. So the car overheated, and you know, it didn't kill the engine or anything, but it rendered my dial-in useless. It slowed down by 3/10 because it was too hot, and I lost the race. So then we started running the relays on everything, and you know, like I say, they were all wired in the dashboard. And so every once in a while with a race car, you've got to take all the wiring out and rewire it, because for some reason, I guess it's just the heat of battle when you're fixing stuff and when you put new stuff in, and you know, you mess with the wiring, and then before you know it, you've got 3 butt connectors on the way to the fuel pump, and you know, stuff starts going kablooey and at the races, and you don't know what's going on. So you got to really pay attention to the wiring, keep doing it over and over again, and make it perfect. This is our MSD7AL2. We took this guy out because he was acting funky in Bakersfield, and put one just like this in there. So then I sent this off to MSD, and they tuned it up for me. MSD is great that way. If you're ever at a swap meet and you see an MSD box for a really good price, it costs about $100 when you send it back to MSD, and they'll take it apart and fix it and put it back together again, and that's a good deal. It's a running joke around here is that they'll never tell you what they did, and you call them up and say, well, what was wrong with it? Nothing, it's working perfectly. $100. So whatever. What we got up here, there's all the switches on the shifter. It's a turbo action shifter that I've had for 30 years. They last forever. I've got all those gauges in there. One of the gauges, I'll take in there. There's the gauges. That one all the way over on the left is a water temperature gauge that goes down to 20 degrees, which is is that it, or is that, yeah, that's the one, yeah. Which typically, like the one up here, this one goes only down to 150 degrees or 100 degrees, which is good enough for most street cars. But for a stock Eliminator, you want to make sure your car is as cool as possible. So you need a gauge that tells you how cool your car is. And this car doesn't even tell you what the temperature is until you're already too hot. So that's something that a lot of people get. It's an expensive gauge, but my friend Terry told me to get it, and I got it, so we've got it. You see there's the switches there. I've got all kind. I got the lights, the transmission fan, the gauges, fuel pump, fan, water, and oil. Oil was like we had there's a special container. It's called an what's not actuator. It keeps pressurized oil. So if your oil pump goes out or something craps out down track, it'll shoot oil back into the engine and keep you from blowing your stuff up. Stevie told us to get rid of it, so don't have it anymore. Just have the switch. There's a tack. It's another piece I've had for a long time. It's got a oil pressure emergency light. That red light that comes on if you're out of oil. So instead of having that actuator, sump pump or whatever it's called, I just have that tells me, hey, shut this thing down. And then the yellow one is it tells me when to shift. I don't usually have that set right. I have it set so low that the running joke around here is, I just have it set so it reminds you to shift the car. These are the front tires I run. These are just Torque Thrust, American Racing Torque Thrust D's, which I painted I painted them silver, and then I put like this special gray over them. I was trying to make it look like magnesium, and it looks good. They look great on the car, really old school. If I had to do it again, I would just spray paint them gray. I don't think I had to go to all that work. I run the Eagle Goodyears on the front too. They're good tires. I like the fronts. I like the backs. That's what I run. Yep, these wheels are a bargain. I don't notice any difference running lightweight wheels and running these wheels, which aren't exactly heavy, but they're not like the ones I had before. I was the first person on the West Coast to have the American Racing super light wheels in black. I don't know what I was thinking. It was a long time ago. I was drunk. When I ordered them, they took forever to get them, and then I had them, and they look good. I gave them to Dr. Big Block. He runs them on his Challenger. They look better on that than they did on this. I'm not really a big fan of super modern looking stuff on your car, although you're allowed to do whatever you want. I mean, something I've been thinking about doing is I can run plastic headlights, which would save weight right up front where you want to save weight. That could be done. But in general, like I say, I don't really like modern looking stuff on this car. It's got the flat hood because I'm not allowed to run a hood scoop on it. And I hand paint my hoods, so you can kind of see under here. Wagons of steel, 426 of the dice. I kind of going for the Vegas gamblers motif. 426 max wedge says on the bottom there. These cars came from the factory with all this reinforcement stuff down in here was all removed from the factory so that it could clear the carburetors on the max wedge intake, that big cross ram I was showing you. You know, the funny thing about the cross ram is it actually is slower than a single 4-barrel. So if it was legal, you could run a single 4-barrel on there and it would go faster. And in fact, in 1964, before the Hemi came out, the max wedge was the NASCAR engine for Mopar as well, and they had a single 4-barrel on there, and so theoretically it was available to the public, so I should be able to run it drag racing. But the max wedge has not been the preferred drag racing engine for Mopar for since 1964 when they were replaced by the Hemi. So there isn't a whole lot of interest in putting the single 4-barrel intake manifold on it in drag racing competition. They have done that with the Hemi, and people run 1965 Hemi cars and 64 Hemi cars with the single 4-barrel on them because some rich guy with the Hemi wrote enough letters to the right people at NHRA and they approved it. So that happens. It doesn't really matter to me. We have put a big 4-barrel onto a combination like this with this car and run we ran, I think the fastest we ran was a 10:09 at 132 miles an hour. When we had that motor in here because we were selling it to a friend of ours, and we said, well, we'll put it in the stocker and we can take turns driving it down the track. And we started out at like 1040s or something like that, and we kept getting faster and faster throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, I was the person who got the last hit, and it was on general principles. I had to have the fastest hit on the car, and so 10:09. Faster than that, we would have had to put a roll cage in if you go 10 flats or faster. And the cage goes up front. Like this is the roll bar, which just goes. It's got the front down legs, that one, but it's only got the hoop. A roll cage, a bar would go over the top of the window there, and then you get what's called the halo bar that goes across here, and then it connects up at the front too. And that gets you down to, I think, 850s. You're not allowed to go forward, although in a lot of race cars where rules aren't where you don't have stock eliminator rules, the bar comes out from up there and then hooks up down here, so it ties the frame together. I've seen cars you could theoretically do that underneath the fender, so you'd run the front snout bar, is what it's called, under here. But I don't know. I don't need to do that, so I'm not going to. I have a feeling it's just a matter of time before a car in C-Stock automatic has to have a full cage anyways, because so many of these cars are running into the 9s now. A lot of guys run their car in stock or super stock. Super stock, when you're going this fast, you have to have a roll cage. And so you get a lighter cage, use chromoly instead of steel. Mine's made out of mild steel. Chromoly is much lighter. But that's something I'll worry about at a different time. For now, I'm just putting this car back together again. Like I said, we've got the 488 gears in, and we're going to put the low gear set in the transmission and put this all back together again and have fun with it. Race whatever it runs, run whatever it runs, because it is like bracket racing. It's unless you're running up against another C-Stock car, you write the number in on the windshield and try and run that number. Cut a good light and run that number and beat the guy in the other lane. So if you're ever out walking around in stock eliminator land out at a drag race and you see stockers, most of the time, well, a lot of the time, if you talk to me, I can only speak for myself. I'll answer any questions anybody's got. I have nothing to hide. And there's a lot in these cars that, like I said at the beginning of this video, there's a lot of stuff that is really useful for people who race other kinds of cars. And yeah, that's about it. So if you have any questions, be sure to write them down below. And I'll see you out at the races. Take care.